Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaste and good evening, everybody. And welcome. We are discussing a hymn written by Shankaracharya, Prata Smarana Stotram, which means the hymn for contemplation at dawn, contemplation on Brahman, contemplation on our non-dual self at dawn. 3 verses, and I thought it would be a perfect fit for these 3 evenings. One yesterday, the 2nd verse today, and the 3rd verse tomorrow. And all of it, Advaita Vedanta in one sense is pretty simple. All of it says exactly one thing, that you are Brahman, you are limitless existence, consciousness, bliss. You might say that, but I don't know it, I don't feel it doesn't seem like that, precisely. That's what Advaita Vedanta wants to do. It says that we don't feel that it's true, we don't seem to think that's true. How can we come to see that we are not just bodies and minds? We're not even just these persons. We are limitless existence, consciousness, bliss, or in Sanskrit, Sat Chit Ananda. So in Advaita Vedanta, the spiritual journey is a journey from ignorance to knowledge, from not realizing to realizing, it's an aha moment, an eureka moment. Oh, so this is what I am. I was always this, I never knew that. Eureka moment that reminds me of Archimedes. We all read the story as kids, that how he wanted to measure what, volume? Mass? Density? Yeah. And then he was taking his bath and it displaced water from the bathtub. Now the new wrinkle to this story is, I recently read, he hated baths. And that day he was persuaded to take a bath, luckily for science and for humanity. And then he said, Eureka, I got it. And then he jumped promptly out of the bath and ran stark naked down the streets of Athens, reputedly shouting, Eureka. So it's a journey. One Swami put it very humorously. He said it's a journey in our lives. Practically, what's the benefit of this knowledge? He said it's a journey from what to so what. That's the kind of serenity, peace, strength it gives us, the ability to deal with these problems in our lives and the challenges in our lives. Vivekananda said, I have taught Vedanta again and again across the United States, across the West. The main reason is because it gives us strength. The strength to deal with the problems in life, or in our personal life, in community, and so on. So, let me chant the hymn, and I'll translate, give free translation, and then we'll focus on the 2nd verse today and deal with a couple of main issues it raises, and then we'll open it up to Q&A again, like yesterday. Prata smarami hridi sangspurad atmatattvam satchid sukha swarupam paramaham sagatim turiyam yat swapna jagara sushuptam avaiti nityam tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangha pratar bhajami manasa vacha samagamyam vacho vibhanti nikhila yadanugrahena yanneti neti vachasa nigama vocho tam Deva Deva Majamachyutamahuraghriyam Pratarnamami tamasah paramarkavarnam Purnam sanatanapadam purushottamakyam Yasmin nidam jagadashesha shesha murtau Rajvam bhujangamiva pratibhasitam vai. At dawn I recollect pratasmarami hridi sangsfuradatma tattvam, the real nature of the self shining spontaneously in the heart. Satchid Sukhaswarupam Paramahamsa Gatim Turiyam. It is of the nature of existence, consciousness, bliss. And this is the goal, the realization of the Paramahamsas. It is the 4th. Why 4th? Yat swapna jagara sushuptam aveti nityam. That which illumines our dreams, our waking, and our deep sleep. The one constant in this cycle of waking, dreaming, deep sleep. That Brahman I am, which is partless and not a conglomeration of material elements. So that's the first verse. That's what we did yesterday. Second one, which we'll look at today. In the morning I worship, at dawn I worship or I adore. Pratar bhajami manasa vachasam agamyam. That which is inaccessible, which cannot be reached by speech or by thought, by mind or by language. Manasa vachasam agamyam. But by whose grace? Yad anugrahena. Nikhila vibhanti. The speech, all speech functions and all speech reveals this world. It does its work. Speech does its work. Language does its work by the grace of that one consciousness. Which, this reality, which all the Vedanta, the scriptures, they only refer to it as neti neti, not this, negatively. That God of gods, I'm bowing down to, I worship, so that God of gods, which is without origin, ajam, which is of unwavering nature, that means it doesn't slip from its non-dual nature. And agriyam, the first. It is the first or the primary. This is the second verse, and this is what we will look at today. And then the third one, pratar namami, at dawn I salute. I salute tamasah paramarka varnam, the blazing sun of consciousness, which is forever beyond darkness. Purnam, which is complete or infinite or limitless. Sanatana padam, which is eternal. Purushottamakyam, which is regarded as the supreme reality, which is said to be the supreme reality. And Yasmin idam jagada shesha shesha murta, and where this world which we experience of endless forms, all of these, they appear in that reality as a snake appears in the rope. So these are the three verses. This is what we are supposed to contemplate at dawn. And why at dawn? Because it's a good time before the world has infected us, before we get caught up in the pull and push of worldly affairs. You contemplate God, or ultimate reality, our real nature, whatever your spiritual path is. Start the day with this. It's a really good way of starting the day and ending the day also. All right, so let's go into this. The second verse. The second verse says, pratar bhajami. At dawn I worship, I adore. Pratar bhajami, manasa vachasam agamyam, vacho vibhanti nikhila yadanugrahena. I worship that reality, which is my own self, which is beyond thought, beyond language. But because of whose grace all language functions. Language functions because of the presence of this self. And this self is referred to is indicated by the texts, by Upanishads, by Vedanta, as not this, not this. So these are the three lines. You can see there is a theme here. That reality, which is supposed to be my own reality, is somehow, for some reason, not expressible by language. So this is the first question I will deal with today. This whole thing about why is it ineffable? Ineffable means beyond language. Why is it ineffable? Why is it beyond language? Why can't you talk about it? Is it forbidden? Is it? And why is it beyond language, beyond thought? And the second thing I will talk about is just one term at the end of this verse. There are some terms which are used to refer to this Atman. Without origin, ajam, without, is not moving away, does not slip away from its real nature. Ajam, achyutam. And then agriyam first. So I'm going to focus on this one term, the first, the primary. So these are the two things I'll focus on today. I'll give translations of the rest of that verse, but the two things, the main theme of the verse is that it's somehow beyond language and thought. what we're talking about. And the more we get what is meant here, why is the Atman, Brahman, the ultimate reality, beyond language, the more clarity we'll get about what we are, our true nature. And I will talk about this term, Agriyam. So these are the two issues I'll take up this evening. All right, that it cannot be talked about, it's beyond language. Those of you who attended the Arati just now, you just sang this. Namo Namo Prabhu Vakya Manatita Manovachanaika Adhara. We sang this. Swami Vivekananda is referring to Sri Ramakrishna, though in that hymn, Sri Ramakrishna is not mentioned anywhere. It could refer to the ultimate reality. It could refer to God. It could refer to an avatar, incarnation. There, he ends the whole hymn of Arati, the evening Arati, with these lines. That salutation, Prabhu, to the Lord. Salutations to the Lord, who is beyond language and beyond thought, and yet is the ground of all linguistic usage and all cognition. And here we find in this same Shankaracharya writes, Manasa vachasam agamyam, not reachable by thought, not reachable by language. Why not? One reason is one reason could be, well, if you're going to talk about God, maybe God is too great to talk about. Maybe God has so many amazing qualities that your language cannot exhaust it. You cannot adequately describe the Lord. Now, this is an explanation that is given by the theistic religions. Some of the dualistic religions, they talk about God in this way. God is beyond language in the sense God cannot be adequately grasped by language. Whatever you say will fall short. Ramanujacharya, the great teacher of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, talking in a devotional mood about his beloved Lord, says, Ananta Kalyana Gunagana, endless auspicious qualities. If it's endless auspicious qualities, you cannot list it out. So it's you cannot express it because God is too great. God is too awesome to talk about. So in that sense, I looked it up. Ineffable. If you look it up online, one of the examples given of the use of the word ineffable is, the ineffable is what the Gentiles refer to as Jehovah. So that's the Jewish way of referring to God. The Jewish way of referring to God, you cannot speak of God. You cannot write or speak of God. You cannot utter the name of God because God is too awesome. It cannot be spoken of. And we say often the name of God in Judaism is Jehovah. But that's, I didn't know that the Jews say that it's the Gentiles who speak of God as Jehovah, not us. It's a wrong way of talking about God. You shouldn't talk about God. Cannot be spoken about. Now this idea, I'm going to set aside. Because, yes, it's true. If there is God and God is too awesome to speak about. But notice, here we are talking about ourselves. Our real nature. Second, we may be pure consciousness, transcendent, whatever it is, but we are not a collection of infinite auspicious qualities. That much I can say. And the second reason why I'm not going down that path is because according to Advaita Vedanta, what's going on here is deeper. It's a problem in principle, not a problem of quantity. Our language is inadequate to deal with the great qualities of God. God is too extreme, too awesome to talk about. That's why we don't talk about it. No, not because of that. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't. Because there is something that language can do and something that language cannot do. And this is something that language cannot do. So there is a deeper philosophical reason. We have to enter into the philosophy of language to understand why language cannot talk about your real nature. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to first of all explain why from an Advaitic perspective the ultimate reality is beyond language. And then I'll see how what strategies have been developed in Advaita Vedanta to deal with this problem. Because it is a problem. Notice, for something that is beyond language, you'll say, Swami, you sure are talking a lot about something that cannot be talked of. You give lectures and lectures, and books have been written about it. So how are you talking about it if it cannot be talked about? How did the Upanishads, the Advaitic texts, and even the hymn, particular hymn which we are talking about, this is all language. This is all language. So how are you using words to indicate something that cannot be talked about? So in Advaita Vedanta, they have developed strategies. I'll talk about 5 such strategies where you can speak of the unspeakable. How you do that. So this is going to be this section of the discussion is going to be this. Why language doesn't work, according to Advaita Vedanta, and how you can, in spite of this problem, still use language to 5 workarounds. That's the term used? Workarounds to overcome this problem. All right. So Shankaracharya's approach here is, first, let's take a look at what language can do, and then we will see why language cannot talk about our real nature as Brahman. What can language do? Shankaracharya says that language can function if there are any one of these 5 characteristics. Shabda pravritti nimitta hetu. The causes or the instigators of linguistic usage. That's a mouthful. What it means is, if something has any one of these 5 qualities or 5 characteristics, any one of them, then you can use words. It's a fancy way of talking. As when we get into it, you'll see it's pretty common sense. We all use it. We know what he means. 4 of them Shankaracharya's mentioned, and the 5th one was later added by Sureshwaracharya. So 5 characteristics. Any one of them will enable you to use language, to talk about anything. What are they? I'll give you the Sanskrit terms and then translate. Jati, Guna, Kriya, Sambandha, Rudhi. Let me translate. Class, then quality, action, relation, and convention. For good reasons, you're all looking mystified. What's all that? But it's pretty simple, actually. So what he says is that if an object belongs to a particular class of objects, you can use the class name to designate it. And an example he gives is a cow. So a cow there's a class of animals called a cow, and they share some characteristics in common. Now, if you designate something as a cow, see, I'm talking about a cow, and we immediately know, by the knowledge of the class of things called cows, we know the characteristics of whatever you're talking about. We can use the term cow to denote that particular animal. So there must be a class of things, and this thing you're talking about, if it belongs to that class of things, a membership in a class allows you to use language to a human being, a computer, an AI. These are all classes of things, and they share something in common, and therefore you're able to use language to refer to them. Are you with me? Yes. A lot of you look very puzzled. Now, remember, even if it looks difficult or, what is he talking about? We are using all this all the time. In our day-to-day usage. Whenever you say, my car, you already are using a class object. If you say, call the driver of the car whose number is so-and-so, he is blocking the driveway or something. The moment you say driver, you have used action. Somebody doing something, and you've used language to designate that person and connected it to a car. So, if it belongs to a class, won't work, because Brahman or Atman, Brahman according to Advaita Vedanta is ekam eva dvitiyam, one without a second, non-dual. There is no class of Brahman. And Brahmin, not Brahmin, that's a class, that's a caste. We're talking about Brahman. Existence, consciousness, bliss, one without a second. So there's no class of Brahman. You cannot say it belongs to that class of things, No. It won't work. Well, what about quality? Guna. The second thing is quality. Quality is, if you look at the flowers there, yes, that'll serve. If you look at the flowers in the shrine, if I say, oh, look at the big yellow flowers. What are they? You say, Swami, they are sunflowers. You immediately know what I'm talking about. The moment I said yellow, flower is a member of a class. Yellow flower, yellow is the quality, which distinguishes those flowers from the orange ones and the light yellow ones and the red ones, the multiple flowers of different colors. And one color, when I mentioned that particular color, you immediately understood I'm referring to that particular entity. So quality. Call that gentleman there, who's the gentleman who is tall. Okay, the tall one. It's a quality. Now, can you use this quality to refer to Brahman? Can you use quality to talk about? Yeah, you cannot. Because the one thing that we talk about in Advaita Vedanta, Brahman, the ultimate reality, is nirguna, beyond all attributes, beyond all qualities. A quality is something that can distinguish the quality possessor from that which does not possess the quality. Right? You can distinguish a red flower from a blue flower because one is red and one is blue. But if a thing has no quality at all, no distinguishing characteristics at all, then how are you going to use a quality to refer to that? It's just impossible. So because there's no quality associated with existence, consciousness, bliss, you can't refer. It's not a red Brahman or a blue Brahman or a tall Brahman or an obese Brahman. No. Tall and obese refer to the body. Red and blue refer to the dress or whatever. But Brahman itself, no. It's not even a happy Brahman or a particularly sad Brahman, but that refers to the mind. Brahman itself, existence, what quality does it have? Awareness itself, what quality does it have? So, then another possibility of using language is action. As I indicated, oh, who cooked this dish? The cook has to be complimented. This is a very delicious dish. Now, how are you using language? By somebody who did something, cooked this dish. Compliment the cook, the chef. So a person who performs some action. Call the driver. Who is the driver of this car which is blocking the driveway? We are talking about the driver performing an action, driving a car, cooking a dish. Can you do that for Brahman? You can't. Because another thing we talk about, the Brahman is nishkriyam, beyond all action. It's the laziest of all things. Doesn't do anything at all. The entire universe is created, exists, whirls around and disappears back into it. If you ask Brahman, why did you do that? Brahman will say, what? I didn't do anything. So Brahman doesn't do anything at all. Nishkriyam. Beyond all action. If it's beyond all action, you cannot use action to point to Brahman. Then you would say, but doesn't Brahman create the universe? God is the creator of the universe. That from which the universe was born, in which the universe exists, into which the universe disappears. So can't you use that to designate Brahman? And Upanishads, apparently that is done. In the Brahma Sutras, Brahman is defined as janmadhyasya yataha, that from which this universe is born, in which this universe exists, into which universe disappears. So aren't you using action when you say God is the creator? Aren't you using action? True, but it won't work in Advaita Vedanta because Brahman is not really the creator of the universe. There's no real universe to be created. So in reality, Brahman has not created the universe. So you can't say that you can't accuse Brahman of creating the universe. So action also won't work, but Brahman doesn't do anything. Then the fourth option of using language is, one can use words if there is a relationship. You say father, or if you say teacher. But notice, all relationships require two or more terms. A teacher is a teacher. Here is a teacher if there are students. Two or more terms. Relationship in Vedanta, in Nyaya, is defined as dvinishta sambandha. Relationship is between two terms, at least. You immediately know why that won't work. Brahman is non-dual. Non-dual. The very word Advaita means non-duality. There is no second reality apart from Brahman. It can appear to be a universe of multitudes, but in reality, nothing here constitutes a second reality to Brahman. There's no countably second. See, it's like this. You look out into the Pacific Ocean, you see 10,000 waves coming up and disappearing. Count them, thousands and thousands and thousands of waves. But if you count water, the moment you count water, none of those waves or the surf or the bubbles or foam, none of them constitute a countable second apart from water. Because they are all nothing but water. You can't say water plus one more wave. No, you're double counting in that case. The water is right there in that wave. In fact, the water itself is the wave. So, relationship requires at least two. To be a guru, you need a shishya. To be a teacher, you need a student. To be a father, you need a child. And so you cannot have relationship. Brahman has no relationship with anything else. Why? Is it particularly asocial, not the mixing kind? No. Brahman is non-dual. There's no second reality. With what will it have a relationship? So you can't use a relationship to indicate Brahman. One more possibility is there. One more possibility of using language. You can't use class, you can't use quality, you can't use action, you can't use relationship. Another way in which language works is by convention. The Sanskrit word is rudi. Convention means you just give a name. Forget all this stuff. Just call it Brahman. Or, as the Upanishads do, call it that. Just that. Just like what you do with a baby. You name a baby. By the way, right now, the whole gender thing is so strong, you're not even allowed to say baby. They're babies. Not Devi, not D-E-V-I. They, T-H-E-Y, baby. You are not good Californians. You should have been on top of this thing. You should have said, yeah, and we know that. So a baby, how do you refer to a baby? You give a name. This is Ram or John or Mary, some name. You give a name. Why? Is it a class thing or a quality thing or an action or relationship? None of that. It's just that I want to call this child this. Let's give this name to this person. That's how we get Sarvapriyanda. And one fine day, I got this new name. So, and now everybody uses that label to refer to me. Why? It's just a name. It's a designation. It's a label that's put on you. And it works. Now, when somebody says Sarvapriyanda, I say, yeah, I look up, I respond to it. So can't we just do that with Brahman? Just designation. This is called conventional designation. Fancy word for just naming somebody. So can't we just do that? Use a name, give a name, call it Brahman, Atman, pure consciousness, whatever. Just use it like that. No, that won't work either. You know why? For a simple reason, to designate, to give a conventional designation, to give a name, to give a label, you must point out what or whom you are labeling. You must separate it from that person is called John. If I say, so that's John, your first reaction will be, who? I say, I won't tell you. Then it did not work. Then it did not work. You can't use John. You don't know what you're talking about. Similarly, if I say Atman, Brahman, what does it mean? What's it referring to? You can't point out. Even the greatest of Advaitins can't point out because it's not an object which can be designated and separated and pointed out. Either you know, if you know, and your guru knows, good. You will grin at each other because you know what you're talking about. But you can't help somebody, cannot help somebody who does not know. So conventional designation doesn't work. Now we are in a fix. Shankaracharya says language can only work on these 5 grounds: class, quality, action, relationship, conventional designation, naming basically. And none of them will work with Brahman, the non-dual existence consciousness place. Remember, I'm using a string of words, non-dual existence consciousness place. None of them means anything to anybody except for the enlightened person. So we are just using the words, learning it and trying to get it, but it has not, language has not worked that way for us. Now, so that's the first part. What is the first part? Why language cannot illumine, show Brahman to us. And yet we have to work with language. These verses are language, Upanishads are language, the Brahma Sutras are language. Ashtavakra is language. The greatest text of Advaita Vedanta language. How are they working? Very quickly, I'll touch upon 5 strategies which is used in Vedanta to use language to speak about something that cannot be spoken about. Just for your consideration, think about it. It's pretty clever, actually. One of them, the hymn mentions directly, the primary one. Yanneti neti vachasa nigama vochu. The Vedantic texts, they refer to Brahman, they point out Brahman, they speak of Brahman, the unspeakable, that which you cannot refer to, by not this, not this. That's the first strategy. So not this is There's a technical word for it, apophatic approach, the negative, via negativa approach, the apophatic approach. It works this way. It's pretty clever and simple, actually. If you cannot say directly what Brahman is, well, maybe you can tell us what it is not. You're not allowed to say what Brahman is. You cannot. But then you can say what it is not. And as you keep on saying what it is not, the hope is the person who's listening, the student, will get it. Hopefully. So, neti neti, not this, not this. It is, so what am I? Not the body, which I thought I was. Not even the mind, this personality, which I thought I was. So, not this, not this, not this. And then blank, nothing, just blank. Is that Brahman? Not that either. So everything that we know, not this, is something that I know? No. It's not. It's nothing that you know of. All right, so it's something that's unknown? Not even that. That which is other than the known and other than the unknown. What is other than the known, other than the unknown? If you think carefully, you are the one which is other than the known and other than the unknown. You can never make yourself an object of knowledge. And yet you cannot say that you don't know yourself. You do. You're the first one who knows yourself. Anyway, so that's one approach. Not this, not this. Neti, neti. I remember once I had a discussion with some Buddhists. So there was an interfaith conference in India on the occasion of the 300th, Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru of the Sikhs. So he said that there won't be any further gurus, and the Guru Granth Sahib, their text, is going to be a guru from now on. And so that's called Gutta Gaddi, when you put the text on the throne of the Guru. And there was a 300th year anniversary of that occasion, and so in a place called Nanded in India. And the Sikhs had organized an interfaith conference, and I was there. Each religion had one or two representatives. Because of some language problem, again, language problem, I think, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, had sent a whole gaggle of Buddhist lamas. So they were all there. They thought that they were there to, I think, chant or something, so that the whole choir had come. Anyway, it's good to have them. None of them spoke a word of English. One of them knew a little bit of Hindi, so he acted as a translator. So at breakfast, I sat with them, and I was surrounded by the lamas, and there was this professor of religion from McGill University, an American lady, Canadian lady. I said, you should sit and watch. These two ancient enemies are going to go at each other now, the Advaitins and the Mahayana Buddhists. So the interpreter asked me, tell us about Atman Brahman. The lamas, they want to know. Now, whatever I said, Sat Chidananda, infinite existence, consciousness, bliss, they immediately said, no. That doesn't work. And I said, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman is limitless existence and consciousness. No. Anandam Brahma, infinite, limitless bliss is Brahman. No. Then I realized no positive description is going to work. So I decided, all right, I have to try a change tack. And I said, neti Brahma, not this, not this. Brahman is not this, not this. So they went into huddle, like a football team, they went into huddle. And they excitedly discussed something in Tibetan among each other. And then when they turned around, they were all beaming with big smiles. And the interpreter said to me, in Hindi, of course he told me, but he said, our teacher is saying, you can be a good Buddhist, come over to our side. Neti, that's the first strategy. In the Upanishads you find, not this, not this. The second strategy to work around, where you don't have to, where you can express something that cannot be expressed usually by language, is paradoxical language. Tadejati, tannejati, taddure, taddvantike. Isha Upanishad says, that moves and it does not move. That is the closer than the closest, farther than the farthest. How can the same thing move and not move at the same time? How can the same thing be the closest to you and the farthest away from you? How? The Gita, Krishna uses it. He loves using it. Sometimes he uses these words, karmanya karma ya pashyet, akarmani cha karma ya. Says the one who sees in action sees no action, and in the midst of no action sees action. Sa buddhiman manushyeshu, sa yukta, sa kritsna karma krit. So who is this person who sees action as no action and no action as action? You say, is he crazy? And Krishna says, no, he is wise. Sa buddhiman. Among all human beings, this is the wise. But if you see action, the wise person should see action as action and no action as no action. If you see just the opposite, how are you wise? So this is paradoxical language. And Krishna pushes it even further. He says, that one is wise, that one is a yogi, and that one is a doer of all actions. What does that mean? Use of paradoxical language. It's all across Vedanta. You can find in Upanishads, you find in the Gita, you find. Why? How does that work? It works this way. It's not paradoxical language used in the sense of a Zen paradoxical language. The Zen approach, the Japanese Zen Buddhist approach, is to short-circuit your intellectual circuitry so that you're catapulted out of your logical mind into intuitively, instinctively getting it. Advaita Vedanta doesn't do that at all. It has a very clear meaning. For those who know, for them it's absolutely clear what is meant by it moves and it does not move. It is closer than the closest and farther than the farthest. It's absolutely clear. What is it? Shankaracharya explains in his commentaries. How is it that it moves and does not move? By itself, there is no change there. But the same one in association with the body and the mind is walking around and talking and running and driving cars, moving. It's going to outer space and whatnot. Same reality with body-mind. Nearer than the nearest, Shankaracharya explains. To the one who knows, it is your own self. To the one who does not know, it seems it seems so, Americans will say, so far out. So difficult to understand, so difficult to comprehend, so far away. So a very clear meaning is there. The Shankaracharya writes a long commentary on that verse, 4th chapter, verse 18, I think. Karmanya karma yapashyet akarmani chaka. You see inaction in action and action in inaction. What does that mean? See, for the enlightened person, even when the person is walking, talking, the enlightened person knows aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. From that perspective, nothing is happening. Just like a movie screen. On a movie screen, there's a cop and robbers, and cops are chasing the robbers, and there's a shootout in Hollywood. So, but on the movie screen, as far as the screen is concerned, nothing happened. In the movie, a lot happened. So, no action in the midst of intense action. And for the unenlightened person, when he thinks that I will not act, I will go beyond action, I'm going to sit and meditate, the enlightened person will say even that's action, because you are identified with the body and mind, you're stopping the body and mind from doing something. That's a kind of action. As long as you think, I am this body, I am this mind, thoughts, speaking, working, walking, all of that is natural, and all of that will feel like I am doing it. You can't avoid it. It's impossible. So even when you think you're not doing something, you're doing something. So this is how paradoxical language is being used to point out something that cannot be directly pointed out. So that's the second strategy. Another strategy used by the Upanishads, by the Vedantic texts, is stories. Stories. So that's a favorite one. Who doesn't love a nice parable or a story? So there are some favorite ones. For example, the 10th man story. That I have told many times. Dashamastvamasi I have told many times. Vidyaranya Swami in Panchadashi, in one chapter, he devotes, he shows the whole spiritual journey through this story. And you know the 10th man story. But I said, oh no, he's going to repeat it. Just for the sake of those who don't know. It's a cute, how many of you don't know the story? Yeah, so some of you don't know the story. So it's a cute one. And I love repeating it, so. So the story is very simple, that 10 people go on a journey, and then they cross a river, and then they think that, did we all cross safely, or did anybody drown? And then one of them counts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God, where's the 10th man? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th man has drowned. Oh my God, it's a disaster. Each one of them counts, and they find only 9 people. And so they start crying, and the wise man is passing by, asks, "What's wrong, my friends? Why are you crying?" "We were 10. We went on this journey, crossed this river, and our poor friend, the 10th one, has drowned. And so we are crying." And that man must have counted and seen they were all 10 there. And so he said, don't cry. The 10th man is there." "Where? We don't see him." "I'll show you. But don't cry. Calm down." "What do we do?" "You count." "We have counted already." "No, humor me. Count again." So one of them counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this man comes and takes his hand around. "Thou art the 10th. You are the 10th. Dashamastvamasi. You are the 10th. 10. And this man goes, "Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10. Oh, I found the 10th man." And the others say, let me try. And they try it, and they find the 10th man. And they're all very happy. According to Vedanta, we're making the same mistake. When we are looking for who am I, we are counting objects, but we are not counting the pure subject. What we are doing is, we look at the body, we look at the mind, we look at the intellect, the subtler and subtler investigation into ourself. We come to complete blankness, the causal sheath or the Anandamaya, whatever. The process is there. But we keep missing our real nature as the witness consciousness, which is not an object, which is the pure subject to which all these objects, gross and subtle and subtler and subtlest, they're all appearing and disappearing. Body and prana and mind and intellect and the Anandamaya, for which causal sheath, for which there's really no English equivalent. They're all appearing, acting, moving around, disappearing to you, the consciousness, but we don't get it. Because we are like that guy who was counting 9 and he couldn't turn this way. This is a story. That story works beautifully. It's very subtle, the story, how it works. There are many aspects of it. Vidyaranya Swami in Panchadashi, he says that this story shows us the entire spiritual journey in 7 stages. The 7 stages are, I'll give you the Sanskrit names and then the English translations. The 7 stages of the spiritual journey are avarana, ajnana, avarana. Ajnana is ignorance. Avarana is veiling. Vikshepa is sorrow and suffering. Paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge, what you call theoretical knowledge. Some people say, I understand it intellectually. That's paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. And aparoksha jnana, 5th, direct knowledge, realization. Then the 6th one will be dukkha nivritti, transcendence of suffering. And then finally ananda prapti, attainment of joy. And look at what happened in the story. First, there is an ignorance about what constitutes the 10th man. That's ignorance. And we have an ignorance about who we are. According to Vedanta, we don't know. Then coming from that ignorance comes veiling. That the existence of the 10th person is somehow veiled from the person who's counting. Doesn't understand who the 10th person is. So avarana is veiling. I don't know, and then it's veiled. It doesn't exist anymore. Avarana. It means, I don't know. You're saying, I am Satchidananda. I don't know that. I don't know that, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Just like the 10th man, exactly what is the 10th man, I don't understand. The next thing will be 10th man doesn't exist. Then the result of that will be vikshepa, sorrow. Oh, alas, the 10th man, our friend, is drowned. And we feel, alas, I am this body, this mind, and I'm trapped in samsara and all the ups and downs. And after all the trouble that I take, one guaranteed thing is, I'm going to die. So there's one absolutely guaranteed terminal disease. It's called life. With 100% fatality. So this is sorrow. And then there comes paroksha jnana. Paroksha jnana is indirect knowledge. The knowledge that that man said, the 10th man is there, stop crying. And for us also it happens, we hear, you are Brahman, you are immortal existence, consciousness, bliss. And you come to the Vedanta Society, you listen to it on YouTube, you read books about it. All of that is what is called indirect knowledge. What do we get? Just like that person heard and believed. The 10th man is there. He doesn't know he's the 10th man, but he feels, a wise man has told me, so the 10th man must be there. Let me believe this person. And we feel that I've heard that there is something called existence consciousness bliss. But I don't know that I am that existence consciousness bliss. You'll say, Swami, but I know that. You've been telling me endlessly that you are Brahman. So I know Advaita Vedanta is telling me I am Brahman, so I know that. You don't. You don't. At most, we have some conception of there might be something called limitless existence consciousness bliss. But honestly, right now, it doesn't come together that I am limitless consciousness, existence, consciousness bliss. If it made sense, if it came together, if it clicked, you would be enlightened, or at least just one step away from enlightenment. But we don't. So, asti, there is something. That much we gather from books and teachers and so on. And then comes aparoksha jnana, through all your spiritual practices and whatnot, just like that person realized, oh, I am the 10th. Similarly, we realize, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman, we realize. And then what happens? Sorrow is gone. That person, they stop crying for the 10th man, and they're delighted because they found the 10th man. Similarly, for us, sorrow is gone because we have overcome suffering, and we attain the limitlessness of our own existence, which is bliss or happiness. So, story. How a story works to overcome the limitation of language. That's a third strategy. Shankaracharya himself tells a story, a very cute little story in the Aitteya Upanishad Bhashya. There's the story of the man who was told by his guru, you're not a human being. His guru scolded him. Amanushyastvam. You're not a human. You're not human. So he was very sad. He was sitting there sadly. And the passerby, I don't know if it's the same passerby in the 10th man story. He comes by and says, why do you look so depressed? My guru told me I'm not human. I'm not human. So the passerby said, look, what are the non-human things? Animal. Are you an animal? He said, no, I'm not an animal. Are you a plant? He said, no, I'm not a plant. Are you a rock? I'm not a rock. So he exhausts all the list of things which are non-human. And then, when this teacher says, now do you get it? And now Shankaracharya himself says that if at this point this man says, all right, so I have realized that I am none of the non-human things, but then what am I? Then Shankaracharya says, nobody can help him then. You might say, why not? You just tell him you are human. In the case of this story, you can tell that person that you are human, because human and non-human, you can talk about it. But if that human, that thing, the Atman, is not something you can express through language, you can't tell him directly. He's supposed to get it. I am not the body, not the mind, not the intellect, and so on. If you do that and follow it in your own experience, you must come to the point where you have this eureka moment, whether you run around in the streets of LA saying, I've got it. So this is how stories work. That's the third strategy. The fourth strategy is something called adhyaropa apavada, superimposition, desuperimpposition. I'm calling it the fourth strategy. This is the way, actually I borrowed it from a philosopher called John Grimes. He has written a book called The Advaita Philosophy of Language. But it's not really the fourth strategy. It's not the fourth, like the 10th man. It is the central strategy. So Advaita teachers say all of Advaita Vedanta can be understood as superimposition and desuperimpposition. All of it. One monk in the Himalayas said, Adhyarop apavad to Advait ka hriday hai. The heart of the Advaitic method is superimposition and desuperimpposition. What does this mean, superimposition? There are many examples, many examples. One example would be Swami Vivekananda's favorite story of the lioness who died giving birth, and the cub was, it grew up with a herd of sheep, and it started to bleat like the sheep and eat grass like the sheep, and grew up to a pretty big lion, but didn't think it was a lion. And then finally this old lion comes and sees there's a lion grazing with the sheep and is mystified, pounces on this sheep lion and drags him off to a corner. And the poor lion is bleating, let me go, let me go. So you are a lion, why are you behaving like this? He said, no, I'm not a lion, sir, please let me go, you're scaring me. And then I'm literally narrating Vivekananda's story, he says, he shows him his face in a pool of water. See, your face and look at my face. Now roar. And so he realized he was a lion. Now the whole sheep identity was a superimposition. He felt he was a sheep, and he acted like one, and behaved and reacted to the world like one. But then he realized that he was a lion. And so the superimposition is an identity, it's a false identity. That's why it can be shaken off. It can be shaken off. And then you realize who you truly are. Exactly like that, we who are spirit, who are consciousness, limitless existence consciousness bliss, who are divine by nature, we think we are bundles of matter. Born and aging and subject to death. So, this is called superimposition and desuperimposition. There are many such stories which the monks use to explain what is going on in Vedanta. They do this, for example, a student came to a master to learn, sir, I have a question, what is space? And this master said, space, that's pretty easy. Here, in front of you. Oh, the ashram. No. Beyond that. Oh, the fence. No, beyond that. Oh, the fields. The master said, it's not working. Okay, you stay here. And here's a garden. You plant sunflowers or some flowers or something like that. And you tend that garden. And you stay in the ashram. So he worked very hard on the garden, and there were flowers. He planted them, and the saplings came up slowly. The plants became bigger and bigger. And there's a whole garden with flower plants in front, like tall plants. One day, the master told the student, now, get to work. Here, take this sickle and cut everything. All of it, yes, cut it, just now. Fast, good, do it now. So he set to work, and very soon it was all clear. And the master said, look, space. He had covered it all up, and he removed it in one fell swoop and said, look, space. And he got, this is space. Now this is superimposition, desuperimposition. How does Vedanta work? So, from the Atman emerges space and air and fire and water and earth, and then they combine together to form planets and stars and bodies of human beings and your own body and the prana and the mind and so on. Okay, and here you are sitting here listening to these words, okay? And then you start with not the body, not the mind, go back and find yourself as pure consciousness. It's like this. If you say, how do I get to the Vedanta Society? You're here. No, that's too easy. How do I get to the Vedanta Society? I said, okay, there's a medicine which needs to be applied. Get up from here, walk out of the door, walk around the block, come back to the door here, come inside and sit down. You will be in the Vedanta Society, I promise you. That's superimposition and desuperimposition. All right. So that's one more strategy. And there's a fifth one, which I will not go into. It's a technical one. It's called implied meaning. So the direct meaning doesn't work. You are that Tattvamasi. It doesn't work. It's like, you know what it's like? In a Broadway show, if there's a king and there's a beggar, and if you say the beggar is the king, it doesn't make sense. How can the beggar be the king? The king is powerful, the beggar is powerless. The king is rich, the beggar is poor. The king has different dialogues, the beggar has different dialogues. Look at the king's dress, look at the beggar's rags. They're all different. How can the beggar be the king? But you know what it means. It means that the same actor is playing both roles. If you go to the green room, you'll catch him changing from the king's dress into the beggar's rags, or from the beggar's rags into the king's dress. It's the same actor, the same guy who is acting as the beggar, who is acting as the king. That's what you mean when you say the beggar is the king. On the face of it, doesn't make any sense. The implied meaning of the beggar is the actor, the Broadway actor. The implied meaning of the king is that it's not a king, he is the actor. He is not a beggar, he is the actor. And that actor is appearing to you sometimes as the king and sometimes as the beggar. And similarly, you are God. It doesn't work. I would like to be God, but it's not true. It's just not true. The dualists often get mad at us, the non-dualists. They say, you're sacrilegious. You're saying that you're God. This is, megalomania is too small a word for this. This is craziness, the utmost craziness. And they're right. You are not God. However, There is a sense in which you are not the jiva, and God is not God, as the godhood of God and the jivahood of the individual is lost, and there is background, there is one existence consciousness place. So that's the implied meaning. So these are the 5 strategies by which you overcome this problem, the ultimate reality being beyond words. Now, there was one more word I wanted to dwell upon, but let's go into Q&A because that will take time. I'll just say what I wanted to say in one sentence and stop. The word was agriyam, first, primary. And there's a beautiful discussion of how Satchidananda is primary. It is existence first, then all existing things. It is you as consciousness first, and then all experiences, worldly or spiritual. The entire display, as a Tibetan Lama put it. When you're enlightened, you will see in that one consciousness, the entire display of what used to be samsara, that very thing now appears to you as nirvana. You are that consciousness in which the displays of samsara and nirvana appear like magic shows. Okay. And it is you, the Atman, which is ananda, which is bliss. First you, and all of it is meant for you. You are first. So, Sat, existence is first. Chit, consciousness is first. Ananda is first, is primary. In that sense, agriyam. Okay, I'll stop here and let's take some Q&A. Do some Q&A. That's more important than going on and on. There's a gentleman there. Just raise your hand and tell us your name and ask the question.
Thank you.
You have to catch the, there. Jeet. Yeah, I know, but that person has been raising his hand for some time, yes. So, please ask the question.
Thank you for the class, Maharaj. I am Govinda, and I wanted to ask on the story of the lion and the sheep. The lion realizes that he is a lion, but because of that realization, he won't behave as a lion like 100%. It will be a little bit difficult for him to catch the prey and behave as a lion 100%. It will take some time to adapt. Is that the case with an enlightened person when he just realizes his true nature?
Yes, that's true. When one realizes that I am not the body, not the mind, there is still an inertia of body-mind which continues. If spiritual practices such as purification of the mind, meditation, prayer, all of these have been done to a great intensity, then you're able to live the life much more easily. Otherwise, they might put up a tough fight. That's why I like Swami Vivekananda's definition of religion. Everybody memorizes and talks about it. But notice, religion is the manifestation of the divinity already within us. He didn't say religion is the knowledge of the divinity already within us. Manifestation. Manifestation requires the knowledge, but also requires living it in thought and in speech and in deed. So that manifestation might not be immediate, might not be full-blown. There might be slight hiccups here and there. So Totapuri, for example, famously lost his temper. And Sri Ramakrishna burst out laughing and he says, I've seen the limits of your Brahma Jnana, your enlightenment. But Totapuri is supposed to have given up being angry. So, you're right. It may take some time. And that depends on the purity of the body-mind. It depends on what level of sadhaka one person is. I remember this monk who, there were a group of devotees around him, and one of the devotees had a kidney transplant, and he was explaining it to the monk. And this monk didn't know much about modern medical science. And the devotee said, well, the transplant is over, but I have to follow very strict diet, and there are many medicines I have to take. And the monk was confused. This is a real story. So the monk said, oh, but if you've got this new organ, why do you have to do these other things now, the diet and the medicines. And the devotee said that the doctor told me, if I don't follow these rules strictly, then my body will not accept this organ as part of itself. And I will not get the benefits from this organ. And it may even happen that in time this organ will die. The body will reject it. And this monk was excited. He looked at the rest of us and he said, Yehi hai Mahatmaji, this is it. If you feel you are enlightened, the first thing is to do is to double down on your spiritual practices. You must protect that new knowledge which has come into you. Why? Because if you do not protect it, it will not be assimilated into your character. Second, you will not get the benefit from it, the joy, the peace, overcoming of suffering. And third, knowledge, if it's a genuine breakthrough, it will never die. It will always be effortlessly available to you. But it may get covered over by your samskaras, get overwhelmed. So this is for average seekers or ordinary people. If you do get an insight, don't be in a hurry to claim that you're enlightened. It's much safer to be enlightened and claim that you're on the path than to be on the path and claim enlightenment. So it's much safer, much better for yourself and for everybody else to claim that, all right, you're a seeker on the path.
Namaste, Swamiji. My name is Arvind, and my heartfelt gratitude to you. I've been following you since almost 11 years, and I have so much of gratitude for all the monks of Ramakrishna. Now, having said that, I apologize for asking you this question, but is there anything, any person here, or anything which we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, perceive, think, other than Sri Ramakrishna?
Repeat that question. Is there anything?
Is there anything here, any person, anything, living, non-living, anything which we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, or perceive, think, other than Sri Ramakrishna here?
No, there isn't. Yeah, this is the definition of enlightenment. The Kena Upanishad. Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate. That means in every conscious experience, when you experience Brahman, or if you have Sri Ramakrishna as your Ishta Devata, you will experience, it's all Thakur, it's all Sri Ramakrishna. Do you want to complete the question?
Yes, and having known this, isn't the liberation from birth and death the last carrot the mind throws at you?
Yes, you're right. Once you know this, once it's clear to you and it's effortless to you, you will also realize the bondage and the freedom from bondage, both are play of Maya. This reality which you now know or you realize or you feel, there was never a time when it was in bondage, never a time when it required liberation, nor is it now said to be in liberation. It's always self-liberated in that sense. I remember a story I heard about Swami Shraddhanandaji, who was here in Sacramento. He told this story about Swami Subodhananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. This was in Belur Math, in the veranda near Swami Vivekananda's room. And Subodhanandaji used to sit there and read the Adhyatma Ramayana, which is the Ramayana but with a very Vedantic slant. And he was reading it and looking up and laughing, and reading it and looking up and laughing. So Swami Shraddhananda couldn't contain himself. He went and asked Swami Subodhananda, "What are you reading? And what are you seeing? And why are you laughing?" He said, "I'm reading in this book. This book tells me that Jagat Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, the world is false, is an appearance. And I look up, when you see from that veranda, you see the Ganga and the city of Calcutta on the other side. Yes. What I see is heaps of ashes, chai dhipi. And I laugh. And I look back at the book, and the book is telling me Brahma Satyam, Brahman alone is real. And I look up, and I see that everything is Thakur. Yeah. The same thing. Yeah. As heaps of ashes and as Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Swami. Thank you for your teaching this evening. My name is Annabella. I have an elementary question. This evening you spoke about the universality of Brahman and that we are all the consciousness bliss. But in my experience, I've had moments contemplating God where I was very, very full of joy and amazement, but I've not had that experience contemplating others or contemplating myself. Could you explain why this is?
Okay. I think what she is asking, if you make it precise, that when you think about God, you're filled with bliss and joy and peace. You don't get that if you think about yourself. And good that you don't get it. If you think about myself, God is vast, I'm so small. God is all auspicious, I'm suspicious. This is the other way around. So when we say we're talking about the self here, it is not the apparent self. It is, first of all, looking into who we are and then discovering God in ourselves and then contemplating God. It comes around to that. It's not contemplation of the individual self. That would be that's literally self-obsession. That is being wrapped up. A lot of people are like that, especially in this day and age. You notice, I'm very aware of myself. That's a red light. And then they will go on for hours and hours talking about themselves and their little feelings and their little experiences. Nobody's interested.
Isn't that the definition of narcissism?
Yes, it is. It is. And we have an oversupply of narcissists in this day and age. Yeah. That is not self-contemplation. That's not attractive neither to yourself nor to anybody else. And so you're right. You're not supposed to. You see, immediately in Advaitic the path, the first thing that you go beyond is the little self. I'm not the body, not this personality. So our self is this body-mind personality, this one, as apart from everything else. In Advaita Vedanta, you move very fast from this little person to the impersonal. The impersonal is the one in everybody. That makes you not extraordinary or special. It makes you just the opposite. It makes you most ordinary. It makes you one with everybody. And that is amazing. That's very deep. See, there are these two paths of spirituality. These two paths. Broad paths of spirituality. One is the God-seeking path, or the God-oriented path. The other one, I won't say the self-oriented or self-seeking path, because that sounds very bad. The self-inquiry path. Who am I? And both of them lead you to the same reality. Advaita Vedanta says both. There are religions which are entirely God-oriented. Christianity is one of them. Judaism, Islam, they're God-oriented religions, all theistic religions. Vaishnavism, Shaivism in Hinduism, Shaktism, they're all God-oriented religions. And then there are religions which are self-inquiry based. There's no talk or even a repudiation about God. They're either silent about God or God is not the center of these religions. So for example, Buddhism, for example, Jainism. In Hinduism itself, you have something like Sankhya or Patanjali Yoga, which is not really about God, it's about self-inquiry. In fact, all the traditional, the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, and in Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, all of them are not really about God. Some of them don't even talk about God. They're all about self-inquiry and self-liberation in different ways. So these are the two approaches, and each has its advantage and each has its disadvantage. The God-oriented religions have this great disadvantage that they don't work unless you believe in God. So it starts with faith. You can't start a God-oriented approach by being Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins. You can't start. It won't get off the ground if you start by questioning everything. Whereas the self-inquiry based approaches, Buddhism, Jainism, they have the special advantage that nobody doubts his or her own existence. See, in the God-oriented approaches, there's always an attempt to prove the existence of God. So Thomas Aquinas, and in Christian theology, you have the 5 proofs of the existence of God. In Nyaya, you have, I think, 9 proofs of the existence of God in Hindu Nyaya. Whereas, you never think of 5 proofs of my own existence or 9 proofs of my own existence. No need. I mean, the one thing that could not be doubted, which Descartes found, was his own existence. Descartes set out to doubt whatever could be doubted. The one thing he could not doubt was that I exist, cogito ergo sum, that I think, therefore I exist, but basically means that I exist. That's indubitable. Even to doubt it proves that I exist. However, I'm coming to your question. What is the advantage of the God-oriented approach and disadvantage of the self-inquiry approach? The self-inquiry approach, one can say that, I exist, but that's there's no big deal. I am the problem. My existence is the problem. That's why I'm here. I am limited. I'm getting older. I feel sick. I feel happy sometimes. I feel depressed sometimes. And financial problems, relationship problems, social, ecological problems, all sorts of problems surround my existence as this little individual. And this problem God doesn't have, because God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, all the omnis, all the glorious stuff, all the advantages God has, if God exists. That's the problem there. That's why when you contemplate God with faith, you feel glorified, you feel sublime, uplifted, joyful. And that's true. That's the sign of real prayer. If you try to turn that kind of attention into yourself, it's terrible. Don't ever. That's a bottomless well of self-obsession. But that's not what the self-inquiry religions do. Buddhism and Jainism, they'll immediately, first thing they do is deconstruct a little person and try to go to something vaster. Now, last word. Obviously, I'm going to prove the superiority of Advaita Vedanta here. What Advaita Vedanta does is it brings the two together and gets rid of their disadvantages and capitalizes on their advantages. It brings the infinitude of God and the absolute certitude of your own existence. It brings them together into a certain infinitude. I am Brahman. That is a certain infinitude. Absolutely certain that it exists, there's no doubt about it, and it's an unproblematic, limitless existence. That's what Advaita Vedanta is pushing us towards. Yeah, this is a very, very good question.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Babu Bangaru.
Yes.
I used to come to see you in New York.
Yes.
I followed you here. I'm glad I'm able to see you again. I'm trying to formulate this question in my mind. I hope I can get it right. I'm not sure if I can. Is there objective reality in Advaita philosophy?
Okay.
Yeah, I understand the idea. Maybe I shouldn't say I understand. That one can understand the idea that consciousness exists in all of us. But all of us see the same objects here and there. You see the table, I see the table. Mm-hmm. What is the explanation for that?
Okay, so you have asked two different questions actually. The second part is easier actually. What you're asking is, if we are consciousness, how is it that we are all seeing this, a public shared reality? We all agree that we are in this hall, beautiful hall, here is the temple, and the Swami is there, the table is there. We all see this. It's a public shared reality. We're all interacting, we can see this. If it is true that the world is nothing but an appearance in consciousness, well, what I'm thinking and what you're thinking is different. We don't experience the same thing. It's only because this world exists independent of my consciousness, of your consciousness, that we can come together and both of us can experience this world. That's the question.
Yes.
That's the question. Yes, good. I got it right. Yeah. And it's easily answered. The answer is this. The public shared nature of the world is no guarantee of its independent existence. I'll repeat that. The shared nature of this reality is no guarantee that it exists independently of our consciousness or even our minds. How so? think about dreams. In your dream, you are there, your friends were there, maybe you're having a cup of tea, you're sharing a cup of tea with your friends. And in your dreams, you and your friends just saw the same table and chair and the same cup of tea. Nobody in your dream complains, it's your dream, I can't see anything here. What you see, you're there in your own dream. It's like a virtual reality. You are there in your own dream, isn't it? And there are other people in your own dream. And they all seem to inhabit the same world. They seem to have a shared reality. But when you wake up, you realize all the people in the dream and that so-called shared reality and you in your own dream, all of it was a projection of your dreaming mind. That's a fair description of a dream. How would you distinguish this from that dream? You cannot. How would you distinguish it from a virtual reality? How do you know that this is not some kind of a projection? And it doesn't require, our Advaita or virtual reality. 300 years ago, Descartes did the same experiment. He said, he didn't have the virtual reality, and he just said, suppose a malign demon projects a universe, supplies you with sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touch and thoughts. Then wouldn't you feel you are actually inhabiting a real universe? But it could all be something projected into you. It could all be doubted.
Like that movie.
Matrix movie. Yeah, exactly like that movie. Matrix movie, yes. It could all be doubted. So my precise point, philosophically speaking, logically speaking, a shared public reality is no guarantee of it being independent of your mind, let alone of pure consciousness, of pure being. One thing which we are directly experiencing is consciousness. The philosopher Galen Strawson, I mentioned it many times. He wrote this half humorous, half serious article in the New York Times called "The Hard Problem of Matter." He said there's no hard problem of consciousness. Why? Consciousness is evident to all of us. Aren't you all conscious right now? Someone says, Swami, barely. Wrap this up quick. I'm losing consciousness very fast. But we are all conscious. I need some more vigorous response. Are you conscious right now? Yes. Everybody will tell you that we are conscious. If you can speak, you will say, I am conscious. Because my every experience shows me that I am conscious. There's no doubt about it. And then the philosopher says, Strawson says, and then we somehow assume that this consciousness is generated by the brain, and then we can't explain how it is generated by the brain, and hence hard problem. Right? Consciousness is there, and then through the consciousness I'm aware of a world, of the body, of the brain, and so on, and then I come to the idea that the brain is generating this. But how is the brain generating this consciousness? I can't explain it. Hard problem. No, but if you take a look at our direct experience all the time, you are conscious. That is the first data that you have, that I am aware. And then what are you aware of? You are aware of matter. Next thing which comes in your consciousness is matter, is the body. And if you look into the body, the brain, if you look into the world outside, the world, as you said, a shared reality, all of this comes second, comes to you after you admit you're conscious. Then your question really should be, I am consciousness, that's clear. There's no problem here. But what is this matter, this universe, this body appearing to me in consciousness? That should be your question. And then Galen Strawson says, and when we investigate that question, we find matter is disappearing before our eyes. As we investigate, as physics advances more and more and more, matter is becoming entirely mysterious. We don't know what matter is, and he calls it the hard problem of matter. There's no hard problem of consciousness. He's sort of half joking and half serious about it. Okay.
If you are a manifestation of consciousness, I am a manifestation of consciousness, your projection is different from my projection, or you exist only in my projection?
I am not a manifestation of consciousness. You are not a manifestation of consciousness. You are and I am consciousness. And all of this is a manifestation of consciousness. Some of it is common, like this physical universe which we seem to be sharing, and some of it is mental, which is different for each you and me. In each case, it's a different mental universe. That's why our waking can be shared, but our dreams seem to be different, because that's mind-based. This is mind and body-based. But the whole thing appears in one consciousness.
Or do you think he's thinking of Drishti-Shrishti-Vada?
Yeah, so then from there we will make a fork into there's something called Drishti-Shrishti-Vada, something called Srishti-Drishti-Vada. So Srishti-Drishti-Vada is the Vedantic cosmology which says the world exists. It's not your projection. It's not my projection. It really exists. The way you think it, common sense, it exists. How does it exist? It is consciousness with the power of Maya, which has projected this world and then projected itself into tiny pieces of this world as individual sentient beings. The power which projected this world is called Ishvara or God, who has really made a world, and then appears in and through all of us as individual sentient beings. And for us, this universe is quite real. It's solid out there. It's not in my mind. I can think of a table, that's in my mind. This table, however, is not in my mind. This is called Srishti-Drishti-Vada. There is a universe, and then you experience the universe. This is common sense. This appeals easily to common sense. Then you can do science. You can have society, you can have laws, you actually feel your interaction. So this is very close to the way we feel about the world, automatically, instinctively. So is this what Advaita says? Not at all. This is completely wrong. And then they will show you that it's only in consciousness all of this is appearing. But they say the starting point is common sense. This is an easy starting point. Therefore, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, Shankaracharya's commentaries, all of them, they take this Srishti-Drishti-Vada approach. They begin with this. And then they go back to showing you that there's only pure consciousness. Only pure consciousness, pure being. So that's the whole process. Now there is another wrinkle, a variant of this, another flavor, if you will, which is called Drishti-Shrishti-Vada, which says, no, this universe right now is a projection of your mind. And that might sound crazy, but that's a very powerful philosophical position. It is very akin to what was called subjective idealism in Western philosophy, Vijnana-Vada, Buddhism, in the Buddhist philosophy. So the world is your projection. Yeah, so that's, and some Advaitins say that we should take that position. Madhusudan Saraswati says, Mukhya Siddhanta, in Siddhanta Bindu, he says this is the main Siddhanta. But it's not easily, you can think about it, you can make philosophize about it, but you want to practice it, it's very difficult. Okay. How Mandukya operates? Yes. That's why I said Shankara, most of the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, but Mandukya Karika, not the Mandukya Upanishad itself, the Mandukya Karika of Gaudapada takes not only Drishti Shrishti, it goes a little further. There's something called Ajatavada. The universe doesn't exist. You say, what is all this? And you say, what? I don't see anything. I see only Brahman. Okay, one last question. We have really run out of time.
Yeah, thank you, Swami. This is Manoj. So, general question. Not related to the topic, but related to the topic. Paradox, as you said. So, I mean to ask, what is the true miracle you see from Advaitic sense? True miracle?
A miracle?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, not a miracle that just pulling out a stone or a gold or a material from nowhere. So not that so-called miracle, yeah, but a true miracle. What you see from the Advaitic sense.
This, that the one can appear as the many. That's the true miracle. There was a monk, a non-dualist probably, in Dakshineshwar, whom Sri Ramakrishna saw. He would come out of the cottage and look at the sky and the temple and the river Ganga, and he would say, like, glory, wow, wonderful, amazing. And then he would go back into his cottage and meditate or something like that. He would. For him, this whole universe was a wonder. How that homogeneous, limitless existence, consciousness, bliss can also be all of this. Kya chamatkar hai. What a wonder this is. And Kashmiri Shaivism, of course, is full of this, the amazement. The ultimate reality is a wonder, and its expression as this universe is a wonder. That's the ultimate miracle.
Yeah, so for the enlightened ones, everything seems to be miracle. But for the practical being, not enlightened being, so what's the miracle that they should expect? Like not turning
They should expect?
Yeah, not like turning the water to wine or as such.
Oh, okay. What do you expect? Yeah, that's a really good question. I see this thing as a question about the point of it all. What benefit are we getting? What miraculous, power you get? The miracle is overcoming of all suffering, of attainment of peace and bliss. The real miracle is realizing what we are. It's so stunning, the switch from being so clearly this limited body-mind to realizing that there is this limitless non-object, which is the ground of this very limited display of this objective universe. And you are that. That's the stunning miracle. That's incredible. It never fails to amaze, it never fails to give you goosebumps just to think about it, that you are that. And Advaita says you can see that, and it is truth, and you can come to see it, appreciate it, and then the benefits will flow from it. You'll overcome suffering, you will attain effortless and endless peace and joy. That's a very good theme and a very good prayer to end with. I pray to Thakur Mas Swamiji that that miracle can happen in this very life to all of us, each of us. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. All right, thank you.